Hello everybody, and welcome to episode number 37 of FinalBossTV, your WoW endgame rating show. My name is Adam KKB. I will be your host for this journey again. We're almost done. We're coming down to the final stretch here with all the classes. Today we're going to talk about Frost and Unholy Death Knights. We have Arv, formerly of Blood Legion, now of Vodka, and Mendenbarr, who is trailing with Midwinter right now, who will be on the show to talk all about the things about Frost and Unholy Death Knights. But first, rating in her new equipment.
Yes.
From you guys, from December, we're finally getting the show upgraded. The lovely co-host of FinalBossTV, there's Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hey, yeah, nice to see everybody. It is really exciting. It's kind of like rating with the new UI. I've got like a mic in front of me, and it's like blocking half my screen. So I'm trying to put chat over to the left side, and I have lights. So I actually look like a normal person in sunlight with correct colors. So I'm pretty excited. Thanks, Faye, and thanks everyone who donated. I'm excited.
Oh, it's not. I mean, I put together the shopping cart, but it's everybody.
Yeah, it was all the Christmas donations.
Yes. I'm getting... My upgrades come soon, which will affect the actual impact of the show a lot more, but one step at a time. However, first, around the table here real quick, we do have Monsieur Mendenbarr. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Hello, hello, hello. I am streaming for the first time ever with the webcam. Never used that before, and I probably don't look nearly as good as the rest of you, but gonna give it a go. And I'm here to have some fun. So let's talk about DKs.
I always ask the guests come on if they're going to be on webcam or not, and I think Arv was like, I already saw you at BlizzCon, just turn the damn webcam on. So, yeah, there was no
I got
surprise.
called out.
You got called out. And there he is. Apparently he has terrible hair right now. Arv, hello, sir.
Hello, how you guys doing? Here to talk about Frost DKs and Holy Dead Knights.
A little bit.
And, yeah, hopefully you guys don't throw me in the chat, because I know you guys...
They probably will.
Yeah, they probably will. So.
They probably will. That's fine. We'll have enough of that. Every show needs a little bit of that. No show is, of course, anywhere near as trolly as when we have on people from Scrub Busters. I don't even know what those boys over there.
Don't say it like that. You're gonna make it a challenge, Faye.
We're gonna have
people in there saying like challenge accepted. All right, let's go.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Come on, Raiders.
The vodka folks are gonna try to combat the. Okay. Sure. Sure, you could try, but I don't know if it'll work. But alrighty.
So speaking of the guilds that our guests come from, let's hear a little bit more about you guys and where you used to raid and how you got to where you're raiding right now. Mendenbarr, let's start with you. I've definitely seen your name before all over Icarus chat and DK stuff.
We actually met at BlizzCon. I'm not sure if you remember. Talked about Max for a bit.
Yeah. I think so.
I actually dropped in on the Paladin group. I sort of crashed the party,
and
I got to meet all of you.
That's so familiar.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, DKs and Paladins are really similar, so
we're pretty much the same thing.
I'm offended.
Oh, hey, I was surprised a lot of you the Actors group didn't like, oh, look, the Paladins are there. Charge! That would have been funny.
Yeah, about guilds, I've been in Divide of Zul'jin for the past 2 years. I joined at the end of Dragon Soul, and I had absolutely no theory crafting knowledge or even cared about it. I think I'd read the guides once, and that was about it. And I raided with Divide for a long time, all 3 tiers, completed all 3 tiers of them. Very happy to be able to do so. And I started doing the theory crafting around the start of MOP, right in the middle of tier 14. Right around after we'd cleared Mogurshun Vaults. And I kept doing it and kept having fun with it and meeting all these great people. And my focus slowly shifted from earning achievement points, which is my old thing, to doing theory crafting and meeting with the wonderful people of the community, which I'm enjoying a lot more than I ever did earning achievement points.
It is a lot more rewarding to...
Yeah, it's a lot more engaging because you don't just feel, ooh, I got an achievement. Yeah, you actually get to meet with other people, and other people can say, ooh, I figured something out about DKs, and other people are like, awesome. Now we know something new about DKs. Instead of, oh, you got an achievement. Good for you. Yeah. But anyway, Divide has been doing very long raid hours for the past 2 years, at 16 hours a week, which isn't that long, but it's really drawn out. We spend, the tiers in this expansion have been quite short in between each other, only about 4 or 5 months, leading up to the final tier, which is going to be a slightly longer wait, unfortunately. But I just can't do the 16-hour weeks anymore, so I decided to move to a 40-hour week. Because, cutting down on the time. So I'm lucky enough to be trialing with Midwinter. Been with there 4 weeks so far. No idea what progression is going to be like, and I won't know until it starts because I've never progressed in such a high-ranked guild before or one that does so many hours, and I'm looking forward to trying. I think it's going to be a great experience, and it's been a pleasure raiding with the members of Midwinter, even in farm.
Except Spazzo, right? Except that
guy.
Except Spazzo.
Except Spazzo. He's just
apparently, I was told...
crapshoot.
They just recently opened up new trials. They brought in about 6 or 7 trials, and most people play on their ults because obviously they've cleared the tier a long time ago.
Sure.
And it was apparently tense, is the way they described the week, and it was the most relaxed I've ever been while raiding in like 5 years. Yeah.
Nice.
And they thought it was tense, and I'm like, I gotta try this out in progression.
Yeah.
So,
that's always how you know that you fit into a new place, is when you're relaxed and having fun when everyone else is like, man, this raid night is really tense,
Yeah.
That's true.
So now where can we see most of what you do online? Because your name is really familiar to me. Do you post a lot on Elitist Jerks? Is it mostly in the DK Acarus chat?
I've tried to reach out everywhere that I can to find other Death Knights and talk with them. I spend a lot of time in Acarus, as does Arv and many other DKs like Magdalena, who I'm sure many of you will also know.
Who's that?
Oh, nobody.
That guy.
Yeah.
Raids in some guilds.
Some guild, never heard of it. Anyway, spent a lot of time in Acarus. I'm currently the author of the Frost and Unholy guides on Elitist Jerks, as well as the Advanced Tactic guides. I'm finding they recently switched over to a new HTML, which I'm finding difficulty with and haven't really been updating them, but I will try to do so for 6.0, at which point I'm also migrating the guides over to Son of a Lich, the DK community created by Mags, the forum version. And I'm going to try to get the guides up and hosted there as well. I have an MMO champion post where I answer any and all Death Knight related questions, and you can just find it under the DK section under Sticky. I have a blog at www.destinysoftworks.com where I talk about DK stuff that no one cares about. And I have a Twitter account at DestinySoftWork, no S at the end. And that's where I talk about DK stuff in under 140 characters that no one cares about.
Yeah.
And those are all the places I can think to find me.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So, now, Arv, let's hear from you, because there's another name that I recognize. Now, I know that you've been doing high-end raiding for some time now. Where have you been before? Have you always been in vodka, or where have you been before that?
No.
And where can we see you online?
Well, I joined Exodus back in Dragon Soul.
Mm-hmm.
I've been raiding I started raiding hardcore in Dragon Soul. I joined Exodus and they raided really hardcore, and then after that, MOP came out and we raided tier 14. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In tier 14, Vodka died, and then Vodka merged with Exodus, and we started raiding Throne of Thunder with Vodka, but Vodka joined us and shit, and after Throne of Thunder, Exodus died, and that's when I joined Blood Legion. There was 2 DKs in the guild when I joined, and I joined to replace one. Pretty much, that's it. I think Siege of Ogrimmar raided with Blood Legion, got War second, and that's it. Then I left Blood Legion because I don't know. I don't think they have the chance to get War first. That's just what I think with the roster. But then I joined Vodka to raid casual. I don't want to raid hardcore anymore. So
I see. Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, where do you think? How do you think Vodka's going to push into Mythic though? Like, are they going to keep the same schedule? Or are they going to try to go for like crazy early placement kills? They're going to try to be in the top 5 or so, or have they not really figured that all out yet?
I don't know about that. I think we're gonna raid like a lot on the first day. I don't know. I think that's gonna be like that, but after that, I don't know. Like they're gonna be casual, obviously. I mean, there's no point to raid hardcore like with Paragon coming back, and I don't know. That's just what I think. Like,
interesting. You both have like a different dichotomy of what you're both doing in the future with raiding now too, because Mend is going up to like upper crust kind of stuff, and you were there for so long, and now you've kind of taken a little bit of step back going into Warlords, it sounds like. So just different shifts in time in the game, which is fair. A little more background now, I guess. We'll move along. So we talk about, we always brought up the hero class stuff with the blood DKs a while ago, and that's a thing. It's really just because you skipped the first 55 levels. So when did you guys start with DKs? Did you pick them up in Wrath of the Lich King? What were you beforehand? Or did you go to DKs more recently? And I'll go with Arv first. What's your background history of your DK storyline?
Well, back in TVC, I played Rogue in a casual guild. When Wrath of the Lich King came out, I rolled DK. And then I pretty much played DK since Wrath of the Lich King. Like, I never stopped playing. I stopped playing for a while in Ice Crown, but after that, I just played DK all the time, and I enjoy it. So I enjoy the class, and I really like it. That's why I'm not gonna reroll any other class.
Fair enough. What about you, Mend?
I played a hunter in the Burning Crusade and Classic. I was about 12 at the time and did not play a hunter very well.
Fair enough.
I hit level 60.
Hey, at least you admit it. At least you admit it.
That's fair.
I thought that when it said male, I searched for male on the WoW website, the old WoW website at the time. It came up with male as in scent mail instead of the armor type. And so when I was trying to equip male on my druid, it said you do not have the required proficiency to use this item yet. And so I put all the gray mail items in my bank and held on to them, thinking I would be able to use them later on a druid. That was my skill level at WoW back then.
We all have those terrible stories. It's fine.
Everybody has those stories.
Yeah.
I think I did a raid once, like one raid, Karazhan, Pug, in full green on my hunter during the entire Burning Crusade, and that was it. And we didn't even kill a boss, so it did not go well.
So it's raiding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I rolled a Death Knight on the third day after Wrath of the Lich King launch when I was coming back to WoW to give it another try, and I never looked back.
It's funny how that happens where you can play the game for a while and you're like, oh, this is fun, and then suddenly you find that thing that is perfectly right for you, and then you're done. That sounds like what it was when you found DKs. That was just the class that was for you.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. I mean, I similarly, I guess for me, because Shaman didn't exist for Alliance back in the day when Burning Crusade happened, I've picked it up and played it since then. So it does sound like you do meet a certain class and just kind of like stay with it for all the way. And you guys are both sticking to DK going into Warlords, right?
Yeah.
Arv? Yeah?
Yeah, DK could be the worst class out there, still be playing it. I put too much time into it. I'm not changing.
Well, that's probably fair enough now. The time investment here is like, bleh. Yeah. Well, cool. And then I was going to go over a little quick here that right now monks are feeling this. Just earlier today on Convert to Raid, Coltrane was freaking out about how monks are getting all the next expansion love after their launch expansion. So that was Cataclysm for Death Knights. So how big of a change did you guys see with Unholy and Frost going into Cata, and how has that been different for Mists of Pandaria now? Like, were there huge sweeping changes to the rune and runic power system, or was everything kind of like okay? Was it good changes, bad changes? Did we have a rocky start? Like, how was Cata and Mop for you guys, Mend?
Well, the only change I can remember from Cata was the rune system change, where we went from basically having 6 runes to having 3 runes with 2 slots each. And that helped a bit for our resource management because it was harder to have a rune that was unlocked and just sitting there, because with the 6 rune system, as soon as a single rune became available, it was being wasted because it wasn't recharging anymore and you wanted to spend it as soon as possible. With the 2 runes in each slot system, it gave us a little more leeway where we could actually bank a rune, which was very helpful for blood and death strikes, without wasting our rune regen at the time. And that's the only change I can remember from Cataclysm. For Mists of Pandaria, we got the 1 second global cooldown baseline, which was helpful towards our global cooldown problems. It used to be you had to be an Unholy Presence to get the 1 second global cooldown, and so everyone did Unholy Presence. They also revamped the Presence system, and Frost was changed from a damage bonus to a runic power bonus, and a reduction on the amount of time you spend in crowd controlling effects, which I don't really notice, but yay, it's there.
Yeah.
And so we finally, after 2 expansions of Death Knights. Frost is in Frost Presence, Unholy is in Unholy Presence, and Blood is in Blood Presence. So it took them 4 years to make that happen, but that works now, and that works fine. And MoP has had minimal changes compared to the other expansions. Kata was our big revamp, and obviously we were introduced in Wrath. And so Unholy got a couple of quality of life changes. We got a ton of quality of life changes overall, like resource costs being removed for Icebound Fortitude, being removed on Gary. We got the new talent system, which is horrible for Death Knights, and we'll talk about that later.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
A couple opinions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. They also consolidated the playstyle that emerged in Dragon Soul called Master Frost, which was a dual-wield specific playstyle, and not many people were doing it before Dragon Soul, and they sort of made it its own thing to the point where they gave it support. Celestalon actually tweeted recently saying that Master Frost and Fester Blight, the 2 DK specs, are two of the only specs created by the community that the Blizzard developers didn't see coming when they designed the mechanics. So I feel that's a pretty cool thing for DKs to have.
Yeah, wasn't it? Who takes a lot of credit for the whole Fester Blight change, by the way?
Magdalena?
Yeah, just
Magdalena.
Maybe,
Magdalena takes...
He named it. He came up with the name.
Yeah.
I had a friend on Zul'jin in another guild suggest the idea, and I did the math to find out if it was viable or not. So it was a trifold effort.
Well, fair enough.
And
yes, we hear about it. Heard about it quite often in Raid.
I just pressed the buttons to like see if it worked perfectly, you know?
Is that?
And he pulled the really high numbers to prove it worked. So it was a fourfold effort.
Yeah, I think it works out well with the two of you on the show, because I think Arv's a little less theory and a little more like hands-on in the game. We went over when we were building the show notes that there was a couple of scumbaggy times when Arv was figuring out how to do crazy damages and wasn't telling the DK community. There's something Arv in there? So yeah, I think you've definitely figured out. I've looked at your parses and stuff too, so it shows that you know how to do them damages. So yeah.
It strikes me that happens in a lot of the communities that we talk to.
Sometimes,
when we have a mature, not every class has kind of a mature community kind of built up, but when we do have one, there's generally like the numbers person or multiple numbers people, and then there are like the doer people who are really playing in some of these top guilds. So, but maybe the both of you are going to be sharing those roles, especially if you're going into Midwinter these days. So
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, you can be super mathy, but if you don't put out the numbers.
Yeah, you got to be able to perform the results.
Exactly. You got to get those. So then anything else you want to talk about, Arv, with how Kata or MoP affected you guys? Or is that pretty much your stance on it? That you just figured out what buttons did the damage and then you just kept pressing them?
I don't know, like Dragon Soul, pretty cool, because we had a weapon that it affected with our mastery, and it was pretty insane. I don't know.
We're talking about the legendary axe?
No, like the one from Madness. Yeah.
That spawned the little tentacles that scaled with our mastery.
Yeah. That weapon was insane. In Dragon Soul, like I don't know. Tier 11, Dual Unholy. That's pretty much it, I guess. Dual Unholy was pretty fun, but hopefully they bring it back. I don't know if they will. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing else. Like Mendenbarr said also.
Sure, that's fair. Anna?
Yeah, I'm really curious what it felt like to play the class that was new back, in Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm when you guys were getting so many changes. I mean, does it feel like the class is much more stable now than it was, a couple years ago, or do you feel like you're getting about as many changes now as you did back then?
Right now, we don't receive that much changes, but I don't know, like
it never really felt excessive back in the day.
Yeah.
What is going on in your background right now?
That's a friend, like.
Oh, okay.
I feel that my perception has changed because starting out as a new Death Knight, it was very I was also a new player, and so when I was a new player and a new Death Knight and all these changes were coming in, I thought, oh, wonderful changes. I didn't know what any of them meant, didn't have any math. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and so I can't really speak as to like the same perspective as I have now as far as those changes go. But nowadays I see the changes and I think that's not nearly enough. We need far more changes. We have so many problems that need fixing. And that's probably more influenced by the amount of time I've spent looking at the class than it is by the amount of changes the class has gotten. I think DKs are in a generally pretty stable state right now, though. I can't speak to how stable they were back in Wrath because I simply didn't have the perspective to really pay attention to that at the time.
Isn't it funny that you have more and more complaints the more you care about your class and the more in-depth you go, and it doesn't really have anything to do with how bad the class is.
I'd use the word more
just
natural.
how much you care.
It just, it happens over time.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. How about to get a little more into how your runes and runic power work real quick about how for DPS DK. We broke this down a little bit for Blood Death Knights because a little different with the whole active mitigation system that Blood DKs have, which is getting a lot better, of course.
We do active damage.
Yeah, hey, you do. That's fair. That's fair. But I wanted to go into how different like Unholy and then like Dual Frost and then Two-Hand Frost is. So I preface this with like that your cooldowns have cooldowns and you're a very GCD locked class. So which one of you wants to walk us through an Unholy rotation? Then each of you can take one of the Frost ones. I know you play that a little more often, but
okay.
Who wants it? Arv, do you want to take us through? What do you do with Unholy right now?
With Unholy, I just smash buttons like pop cooldowns and win. I don't know, for talents, I guess I like Runic Corruption more because it's like, I don't know, it keeps me on flow with all the abilities. Like, I don't know. I guess some people use Blood Tap, but I don't like Blood Tap as Unholy. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think Runic Corruption is better. Yeah.
So what's the ebb and flow of Unholy look like right now? Like what's a rotation feel? Like how do you, where do your buttons go? What buttons are prioritized more than others?
I prioritize more Dead Coil because I want to keep my pet transform 100% of the time.
Okay.
Score Strike and Festering Strike. That's it. I mean, there's not many abilities for Unholy. There's only like 5 abilities and like 3 cooldowns, I think. So yeah, I mean, Unholy is pretty simple to play and it's not really that hard. Yeah.
And then, Mend, what about which Frost variant are you playing a lot more of right now?
Well, I'd imagine I'm playing a lot of Dual Frost, and I believe Arv is doing the same, and pretty much everyone is doing the same.
That's fair.
It's flavor of the mother spec.
And why is that? What about Dual Frost is like so good right now?
Well, it sims slightly higher, 2.5% in the single target range, and that's not enough to make a difference in an actual fight because obviously random numbers and luck and just general mechanics and gear and the ability to play well are going to make up much more than 2.5%, but it looks slightly better, and it also has the benefit of the free cleave that it gets from Howling Blast. Dual Frost has many of the same abilities as Two-Handed Frost, but the primary difference is instead of using most of your runes on Obliterate, you use most of your runes on Howling Blast, which does a lot of single-target damage comparable with Obliterate, but also cleaves, and Obliterate doesn't. And so Dual-Wield Frost gets a tiny bit of extra damage, and it gets all this free cleave, to the point where it's just more popular than Two-Handed Frost. The only real benefit to Two-Handed Frost is it doesn't require dual-wield weapons, which and it's, in my opinion, an easier spec to play because it's a little less fast-paced. Instead of using a 1-rune ability, you're using a 2-rune ability. And so that's why a lot of people are playing Dual-Wield Frost right now.
Huh.
Who would have thought people would want free cleave?
They would have thought.
I know.
What a shocker. What a shocker.
It's free AoE, man. And people complain about that. Like, it's insane. Like,
well, it was much worse in Tier 14 than it is now. I'll just put it that. Speaking as another melee who had to play alongside you guys. But, God, I blast.
We got nerfed pretty hard. I think the first week of Tier 14, they halved the cleave damage of Howling Blast. Do you remember that? Like, I remember doing Lei Shen and doing more cleave damage than like 4 or 5 other raid members combined, and then it was just halved and it was all gone. I missed out on that. And it was only in there for the normal modes. I remember that. And never got to try it out on Heroic. So sad.
Wow. I mean, I guess it was just too efficient and too like just free to have that
Yeah,
much
it's too free.
AoE. Yeah.
If you're going to be doing that much AoE, you need to be making a change to your rotation and sacrificing some single target.
Something.
That's no fun.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun to do that much cleave. Like everybody loves cleave. I love cleave damage, but you should actually have to do something different. You shouldn't just get it all for free.
Well,
So-
we sort of changed around our priority tiny bit, but it was the same ability in a different order when we wanted to do full-on AoE, but it's pretty much exactly the same. You even use Death and Decay on single target now, so...
Really?
I mean, you do it sometimes, not all the time. Like when you
Well, it
have nothing
depends,
to do.
yeah. Arv's right.
Yeah. So then, Arv, what is the difference now, and why is like dual wielding just pulling ahead so much? I mean, is there anything else you want to go about? Because I'm assuming
Wow.
all your top ranks are all dual wield Frost, right? So
Yeah.
What's
A
the-
lot of the fights are like very heavy on AoE, so I just play Dual Frost. I mean, because it's easier to AoE as Dual Frost. I don't know, like Dual Frost is more fun to play. I don't like two-hander because you just spam obliterate. Like that's just not fun. Dual Frost, you do Holy Blast, Frost Strike, Blood Tap. I mean, it's more like you press more buttons. Like I don't know. It's more harder to play, but it's better. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about, so that you put on here the notes too, Killing Machine, which I assume is that the proc that goes with Howling Blast, correct?
It's a proc that goes with melee attacks. Whenever you melee, you have a chance to proc Killing Machine, and it makes your next Frost Strike or Obliterate a 100% crit chance.
Oh, okay. Then why did you put on here that you wanted to talk about how Killing Machine is being ignored for two-hand Frost?
Yeah.
Why is that? Is that...
Well, two-hand Frost cycles between, it uses runes on Obliterate, and it uses runic power on Frost Strike. And so a lot of math was done at the beginning of this tier by Juliet, and I really hope I'm not pronouncing that name wrong. And the basic conclusion that we came to was, even though Obliterate hits harder, and it's better to have a crit on an ability that hits harder, it was worth too much time to try to make it edge towards the Obliterate to the point where you would literally ignore the procs. And because of how global cooldown capped we are, and the goal was to get out as many Obliterates and Frost Strikes as possible and not to line them up with Killing Machine, the end result was just that you ignore it. And it's just a proc that doesn't even need to exist because it gives no benefit at all. You don't change your rotation because you're just spamming two abilities that consume the proc, regardless of whether or not it actually procs. Dual Wield Frost, on the other hand, gets to cycle between Howling Blast and Frost Strike, and only one of the abilities procs the Killing Machine, or actually uses the proc up. So you have to actually react to the proc and switch from Howling Blast to Frost Strike when it procs up. So it creates interesting gameplay, and it actually gives the proc a reason to be there. But for two-handed, it's just like
So that seems
5%
like
passive
it's...
crit.
You pretty much ignore it as two-handed. You ignore Killing Machine as two-handed.
Like, you don't even need to know it exists.
Yeah, you just remove your weak auras and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you don't even need to. Like
That's weird. I know that I remember using it, when I used to DPS back in the day on my Wii Death Knight, but I always thought like that was really neat. But I guess now it's just come to the iteration that that doesn't sound like it should be that way for two-hand. I'm not sure if that was like an oversight on the ability.
It ties into our global cooldown cap and how much time we spend waiting, which isn't enough. It's actually worth monitoring Killing Machine if you have negative like 10,000 haste. But if you have any amount of haste at 0 or higher, then it's not worth looking at it. So it's a problem with how much time we're spending as a Death Knight actually using our abilities, which will be slightly improved based off the initial changes with the removal of Horn of Winter. So that's one less button we have to press and one less global cooldown we have to spend.
That's fair. And then I know that's Celestial I do believe that tweeted that they want two-hand and dual-wield Frost to both be like workable, and then they only wanted two-hand Unholy. So I imagine there's gonna be some love and some fixing of that sort of iteration right there with Killing Machine being like completely ignored, which seems to be a pretty integral part of Frost as a DK, but then two-hand just doesn't even care about it.
Yeah,
So-
two hands probably
just
needs
tuning.
more damage than dual wield because dual wield gets the free cleave. And so there's going to be an advantage to both of the specs. If both of the advantages go to one of them, why would you play the other?
Why would you play the other one? And that's where that's at right now. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point to play two-handed. You just like when you AOE, two-handed falls behind really bad. So
I see.
you just play Dual Frost and win.
And win.
So I'd like to ask something kind of as a follow-up to the Mage episode that we had on here a couple of weeks ago. So the mages were talking about how they were kind of bummed out that their specs, every tier, they just have a spec that is the best spec. And everybody goes that spec. Whereas for a class like Warlocks, they have specs that excel in different kinds of raid environments, and so they can switch back and forth. And it sounds like, from what y'all are describing, that DKs are much more along the line of every tier you guys theorycraft out which one is the best spec, two-handed, dual-wield, or Unholy, and you guys just all play that spec. Is that about right from what y'all are describing?
It's pretty much about right. Like, people just theorycraft what's good.
Yep, everyone does that spec.
In my theory, I say that if AoE comes, Dual Frost is better. If single target comes, Unholy is better. If somehow, I don't know, if Unholy doesn't get nerfed, Unholy will always be better single target, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know. What do you have to say, Mendenbarr?
No.
Yep. For this expansion, at least, which is the one I've been really actually paying attention, it's been one spec per tier. It was Unholy in tier 15. It was Dual Frost this tier until the balance changes went out after the progression waste was well over, so they didn't really make much of a difference. And then in tier 14, it was actually two-handed Frost, I believe. Arv, am I remembering this right? Do you remember?
This tier or tier 11?
Tier 11? 14.
In tier 14.
Oh, tier 14.
That was Mogashun Vaults. That was the first tier.
Dual Frost. Tier 14 was Dual Frost.
Pretty sure it was Dual Frost because I remember that was the tier I hated Howling Blast.
It was that stupid blue all the damn time.
I mean, I played two-handed for all of progression, but then after that I just switched to Dual Frost after I got the weapons.
Yeah, I think I switched like right around the time we killed Shah Fear. So yeah, end of progression. But I was two-handed Frost progression as well. And the problem is, if one of the specs is even like 0.1% better, a number of people are just going to flock to that one. And if it's 1 or 2%, then it's just more people. But some people don't care about which spec they prefer. Some people don't care about which spec is more fun to play, or the different advantages offered by the different specs. Like Unholy might have better sustained AoE damage with their diseases ticking on a huge crowd of objects, while Frost can burst a lot higher for very small periods of time. And two-handed Frost and Unholy both do much more burst damage than dual-wield Frost does, because dual-wield Frost is a bunch of little attacks, and our main cooldown is like a 40-second cooldown with a 20-second duration, and Unholy's got 2 3-minute cooldowns. So the specs have different strengths and weaknesses, but one comes out on top in the eyes of the majority of people, and there will always be some people not playing that, and more power to them. But it's just, I think, a problem with the balance of the game in general, because they can't balance everything on a pin. Something has to be better in one, even if it's a really, really tiny amount better, it's going to be better, and people always flock to whatever's better. At least
I mean, I guess the question that I was going to try to go for there was, do you think that it would be a more healthy environment for DKs if there was a tier where you looked at that tier and you said, well, I want to be Unholy for these fights and I want to be Frost for these fights? Is that even a possibility? Would that be a better situation, or are you pretty satisfied with the way it is now?
It happened in Dragon Soul, if I remember.
It happened in tier 11. Like, some people, like you could just go Frost for, like, I don't know, Kim, and Unholy for Maloriak, and it's like different fights. It's better. One spec is better than the other. So
yeah, people went Frost even if they were Unholy on the Hydra Megara, because the heads weren't up long enough and your diseases didn't do any damage. So the majority of people swapped to Frost for that fight, even if they played Unholy. I think that it's probably slightly healthier for the game as a whole, because you have that ability to switch between the classes, or rather the specs, and there are actually some advantages to swapping on certain fights even in this tier, I'm sure, but they're very small. And I think they should be small, because it's very annoying to have to reset your carry around 3 sets of gear, 1 for tanking, 1 for Frost, 1 for Unholy, especially without reforging upcoming in Warlords. And even now, reforging an entire set of gear, regemming the entire set of gear on every fight is a bit annoying.
Yeah.
Well, in the future, if the reason why I hear that works for other specs is if the same gear set works for both specs, and that's not always true. I mean, there are some specs for which you have to reforge. I know our priests will switch specs, and they're like, get the reforged mount out. But I know that Lux, I guess they are able to make most of the same gear work when they switch specs. So I guess it just depends. I suppose it would be harder for you guys because you would need different weapons.
Yes,
that's the
between
only issue.
dual wield. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Which is a
that
pretty
would,
huge change.
That's
Yeah, I
why
really
they need
like
to
it when you
make dual Unholy.
Yeah.
They need
There
to make it happen
are-
again.
A fair number of people who swap between two-handed Frost and two-handed Unholy because it uses a similar gearing strategy, if not exactly the same one. And so you do have the freedom to go in between those on certain fights. And like I said, on Magira, people went to two-handed Frost and they just kept the same gear for that fight. And dual wield can actually swap to Blood pretty easily because they both gear pretty heavily towards Mastery. So there's a little benefit there as well. But it's just not done as often as I'm sure it's done for other specs like Warlocks.
Well, that makes sense. I like it when you guys are dual wield because that means you're not taking my weapons. The less people going. No, seriously. In a raid, the less people going for two-handed strength weapons, the better. Your distribution is a big deal. I mean,
I feel the same way.
It's one of the
I
reasons
hate when warriors one-handed weapons like
Damn
it's-
warriors.
And then they switch to two-handed. Like, what's the point, man?
Yeah.
Like, you're just taking my weapons, then you switch back to the other spec. Like, come on.
Ugh.
I mean,
Fair
no,
enough.
gear distribution is a really big deal. I mean, and that's why it makes a difference if every single strength class in the game is going for two-handed weapons in a single tier and nobody wants the one-handed weapons, then that is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Move us along real quick. We're gonna get into get a little heated. So I'm gonna well, the next topic is kind of heated, so whatever. I don't know where we're gonna go with this, but we have some questions that come in. If you guys have questions, of course, when we ever have a show that's coming up, or if you have curiosities or you know what shows on the way up there, all you have to do is go head over to our website. Just go to FinalBoss.tv and go to the Ask a Boss section. There's a nice little forum there. You can fill out and ask us questions. And of course, you can always ask us questions during the after show on Twitter. So yeah, but I have this one real quick to bring up. It is right here. We're talking about Soul Reaper for a minute here. I kind of doctored this up just a little bit, but it's so when is it worth using Soul Reaper on the boss below 35%, or on an ad that's about to die for the haste buff? Now, different answers for two-hand Frost or dual-wield Frost. I know you guys both have a lot to talk about with Soul Reaper, but yeah, what do you guys think about using it on a boss below 35? I know you said there was a breakpoint on when you just ignore it and don't use it anymore, and what does that fall into it? Men?
Okay, so first of all, it is never worth using it on an ad about to die because mathematically, the amount of haste you get will regen the rune cost of Soul Reaper about perfectly. So you spend the global cooldown and you get the physical damage, and that's it. Doesn't cost a rune because you get that back from the haste, but you also don't get back anything worthwhile. And the physical damage of Soul Reaper is crap. You do not want it. It's not worth it. It's a waste of time. Never do that. I can't think of any situation where you'd ever want to do that. As far as the damage goes, it has a very high base damage, and it's got a medium level attack power scaling. And Howling Blast has a decent attack power scaling as well, but also scales with Mastery. So it has a point of attack power where it overtakes Soul Reaper in damage. And I'm actually going to link the equation in chat for you. And you can plug in your...
What the heck is that?
Oh god, I'm scared. I'm running away.
What is that? Oh
you
my
can plug in your weapon damage and your mastery value, and then X is your AP attack power breakpoint, at which point it will go over. And for most people, on with an average amount of 2 sets up, it's around 130 to 150k, which is Pillar Frost and Rune of the Fallen Crusader, which is up 90% of the time, or a trinket. So it's most of the time it's not worth using. There are some cases where it is for a very highly geared to a Frost character. The lower you go in gear, the higher the breakpoint becomes, or the harder it is to reach the breakpoint because you have more trouble getting that high level of attack power as you're lower in gear. Now, for two-handed Frost, where you don't stack Mastery, the breakpoint is almost never reachable, and you don't use Howling Blast anyway, because you use Obliterate instead on single target situations. So you just pretty much always use Soul Reaper when the boss is below 35%, and accept the pittance of damage you get out of it, because it is small, but it is there. And Unholy should never stop using Soul Reaper. It's the most important thing for the Unholy rotation. It hits like a truck on steroids. Ridiculous.
A truck on steroids.
It's like 3 times harder than our second hardest ability.
But for Frost though, it's just not.
Dual wield Frost at the lower gear levels, use it. At the higher gear levels, you want that equation. I know people who've set up weak auras, and there's actually, I believe, an add-on called DK Diseases, which is primarily used for unholy disease gaming, which also has a counter to check if Soul Reaper is worth using, but it's very, very tiny, even if it is worth using. I've personally taken it off my bars for the past couple of months.
No.
So I don't even use it anymore. It's not worth the effort for me. And
Yikes.
Two-Handed Frost uses it and accepts a small gain out of it. But yeah, it's just very lackluster ability at the moment.
Arv, anything to add to Soul Reaper?
I think Soul Reaper, Frost. For Frost, it's like you only use it below 125k attack power. After that, it's like when you have Pillar Frost up and Trinkets up, you don't use it. I mean, to be honest, like Soul Reaper's not worth using at all as Frost. That's just why I think for Unholy is like you use it on cooldown because it scales with your mastery. And yeah, that's it. They should make Soul Reaper Shadow Frost damage. Like, I mean, they're gonna do it, but it's like they're gonna do it in the new expansion. Why they didn't do it this tier? Like, I don't know. It's just
Fair enough. It's interesting that like literally we talked about this when we were setting the show up. How the better your gear gets, you literally devalue an ability, which I don't think is a gameplay aspect.
Not intended.
That's not intended. I don't think
No.
so. Yeah.
It's from mastery. The fact that abilities some scale with mastery and some don't.
Yeah.
Like high level Dual Wield Frost drops Obliterate out of the rotation. It drops Soul Reaper out of the rotation, and we've coined it Master Simple instead of like Master Frost.
Right.
It's just Howling Blast, Frost Strike, and that's it. That's all you press your buttons on, and then you have
That's
filler.
all you do.
Yeah, that and a filler when you run out of the ability to Frost Strike or Howling Blast. But
Now that is being changed though in Warlords.
I mean, hopefully
right?
that's the kind of thing that
Probably.
they can fix with numbers tuning rather than with mechanical changes. I mean,
Soul
that's
Reaper-
just a question of strength.
yeah, Soul Reaper should be coming back in Warlords because they're making it Master or Shadow Frost damage, so it will scale with Frost Mastery, and it has a higher base scaling, so it'll just increase faster than Howling Blast does. So it'll always be worth using. Obliterate, not so sure. It depends. Like the current changes, Obliterate will still be dropped out at a high level, but I'm not sure. We don't have enough knowledge to know whether or not Obliterate will make it into Dual Wield Frost rotation for Warlords yet. That's in the future.
Okay, but that hopefully will fix it up there too, because that's definitely can't be a planned issue with that. That can't be a thing. So alrighty. Well, here's a fun one, real quick here, and we'll kick this off with I'll kick this one over to Arv after I ask it. We're gonna talk a little bit about Bloodstrike. So, what is the purpose of Bloodstrike? Because Unholy apparently still has this thing.
Button bloat?
Button bloat? Celestalon! No, so yeah, Arv, what?
Last week, Faye. That was last week.
So, sorry. I was pulling a Coltrane. Yeah. So what's the deal with
what
this?
what is the actual purpose of having Bloodstrike still around?
Yeah,
There's no
Arv?
purpose. Like, it's just.
I mean,
like,
it really is
it's
just
there
button bloat?
because, yeah, it is. Like,
They forgot to take it out.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like, you have it on your bars, you're doing it wrong, man. Like,
Yeah.
Does it
that's
count
how
as
it is.
button bloat if it's no one uses it on their bars?
Well, hopefully no one uses it on their bars, but
yeah, I mean, well, they perhaps I'm using the wrong term, but spellbook bloat, I suppose.
there you
that'd
go.
be a good idea to remove it. They actually made a note in the patches that it's being replaced with Obliterate for Frost, but Frost currently doesn't have it, so I don't know how it's going to be replaced.
Well, maybe on their end they have to make that iteration
know.
in the spellbook, because I'm assuming when you switch specs, all it is spellbook things that you don't on the spec are just grayed out. They're just invisible. So I'm wondering if that's what they're just making the delineation for that spell in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
They
Somebody
should
in
just
chat
throw it
mentions
out.
that it might be used in PvP, Zarvine says. Perhaps.
Really?
Who knows?
Nope.
I don't know. I don't think so, though.
What's
What's
PvP?
that?
What's PvP? What is that?
Yeah, that's like an alien. That's an alien term to us. I'm scared. Let's move along.
I'm scared.
Bloodstrike is basically the same as the other abilities DKs have. It just does damage, and it does lower damage than the other abilities for the same rune cost.
So there's no reason to use it.
I can't see why anyone would use it in PvP or PvE.
Interesting.
It does no damage, and it has no other abilities.
It
Like,
doesn't have any other tie or anything. It doesn't
Nope.
do anything. No.
it doesn't
debuff,
interact
no
with any talents or any passives or anything. Necrotic Strike has an anti-heal. Our Death Strike heals us, even as DPS. We have a bunch of utility, and Bloodstrike isn't one of them. It does nothing. It's useless.
There's nothing. So get rid of it.
It's like your pinky toe.
It's like, what? Hey!
You don't need that.
Wow, that's an insult to my pinky toe.
Jeez, I know, right? Gosh. Terrible. All right. Arv, anything else on Bloodstrike or Soul Reaper before we move on? Are we good?
Nothing else.
Nothing else. Perfect. Well, I'm going to take a little bit here and tell you guys in the chat room and everybody about a couple of communities that you might not have heard of, and if you haven't, then I will enlighten you. Some people behind the scenes that we work together with to bring awesome stuff to the community. And first up, of course, the newly formed Sentry Totem. Sentry Totem is going to be a pretty awesome resource as it gets up and running here. We've had a couple of, like 2 weeks now, I think, we've been doing stuff, but there is, it's going to be a news depository, of course. There's a whole bunch of people on the show. I mean, actually, go click on staff and hope he doesn't crash right now. There we go. That post guides and do contributing stuff. They have the Brutals right here. There's Final Boss. A whole bunch of people that actually have been on our show are showing up on here. Different columnists that write about news. There's Anna. There's Anna. There's Archie from the show. There's Ariel. Binks there. Calligraphy Chill. There's Sios. So there's a lot of people that are on here as experts that will be posting things about their classes when they get up in the future, especially going into Warlords. They also, other thing, there's Spazzo. And Shuttle. Whee! And then you'll be able to do audits where you can submit your logs and your armory of your class to an expert, and they'll audit and help you out. And that'll be really great going into the future now, into Warlords, when a lot of things are going to be changing. So that should be great. Definitely, there are going to be some PvP stuff on there, too. There's a whole bunch of live streamers down here on the side that are really nice. Oh, there's us. And, yeah, you guys go check out Sentry Totem. Just bookmark that. Check it out every couple of days or so, especially when we get closer to Warlords. Additionally, we talked about it a little bit here on the show before, but if you are a DK, or your friends are DKs, or your gillies are DKs, and you need a place to learn about everything going on in Warlords of Draenor, you want to go check out sonofalich.com. This is the awesome DPS DK, and of course, blood is welcome, I think. They're right here. Their live chat is right here, and you just click on Acarus live chat, and you click on the IRC, and then it loads up right like this, maybe, hopefully, please. There we go. And then I can be like, hi guys, you're on the air. Say hello. I actually was in Acarus a whole bunch, setting up to get notes and guests for this show. It's actually pretty amazing to have such a active community for like we're one class. Tons of people. Look at all these people over here. And oh, see, people are saying hi. There we go. But if you guys want to learn more about DPS DKs, go over check out Son of a Lich. Go get in that IRC. Go talk to people. And then, of course, if you've missed any episodes of Final Boss in the past, you can go check out our YouTube down below. All of our episodes are right down there. The after shows and the main shows are there. If you missed watching our WoW Trivial Pursuit special event, go check that out. We had Nobble the Noble, both brothers from Fat Boss, Brutal. There's Anna, there's Elvine, there's Silver Latomi, there's me. There's 2 episodes of that. Really awesome stuff. But we have 36 episodes. If you didn't catch the interview last week with Celestalon and Zarum, it's right there for you. DPS Warriors, only got a couple of classes left. Here we go. It keeps going. It keeps going. Wait, it keeps going again. There's so much Final Boss that you guys can check out if you've missed any episodes. So go do that. All of our social media is right down below. Whoop, that's the wrong button. And again, people have been wondering about how they can help support the show. The donation button is back up. Donating to a certain amount can get you the awesome Final Boss wristbands, which it's all folded up. That's weird. Final Boss wristbands. Yeah, they have Ragnaros in the back. And if you donate to over a other certain amount, you can actually get your own custom Final Boss t-shirt. All the information, again, is over our website, which is FinalBoss.tv. Again, links down below. And that's part of why Anna's got new stuff, and I've got new stuff coming on the way, too. We thank you guys all for helping support and helping grow the show. It's been a wild ride, and we have a lot more in store for you. And just on a side note, we are doing Holy Indus Priests and Warlocks again. People have been asking about if we're going to revisit those. We are revisiting those because those are really early episodes back in the day. So we'll do those again for 5-4. But enough about me. All right. Fair enough. Let's do this. Let's get into some nitty-gritty. You guys ready? Are you awake? Good? Perfect.
Meat and potato time.
Meat and potatoes time.
With coffee.
Hello.
Yeah, meat and potatoes time.
This opens up with a question that came in, our last question. Boop-a-doop. And...
Ooh, I want to ask this one, Bay.
Ask it.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Festerblight.
I'm doing the question first, Anna.
Wait, the question is whatever. Okay, fine. You go first.
Well, so is there any reason... There was no point for this if there was any point for like different stat values, but is there any reason why you should reforge into a certain amount of haste on any of the DPS sides of DPS DK? Like 20%, for example? No? Arv was already shaking his head. No? Is there nothing? No.
There's minor breakpoints for the amount of tax your Army of the Dead will get out, for the amount of tax your Gargoyle will get out, and for the uptime you have on your 2-set, which is a stacking buff whenever you get a proc. But in general, it's not worth trying to go for any of the caps because there's like a million tiny caps that mean practically nothing. So just treat haste as a flat value pretty much for all of the specs.
Yeah. Haste used to be the best stat. Now it's the worst stat for DKs.
We got no room for it. We're
so there's not a haste cap or anything like that?
Our haste cap is 0. Okay. For Dual Wield Frost. It actually is. If we're taking Plague Leech.
For Dual Wield Frost, the less haste, you do more DPS. That's how it works.
The haste cap is 0. Your global cooldown capped at 0 haste with generous AMS soaking. But more haste basically punishes you less for bad soaking with AMS, which we're probably going to get to later, which is the free runic threat of fight. And so the haste basically scales with the amount of runic soaking you can do. And the more runic soaking you do, the worse haste is. So it varies fight to fight. But I've never met a DK who was reforged into or out of haste on a certain fight. Maybe I've just never met them, but...
Okay. I was curious.
That's fun. That's so weird that the value of a stat changes based on your behavior in a fight. That's so strange.
Generation of resources.
I see.
Well, I haven't heard that before. Usually everyone's like, you know, one stat is really good and the other stats are kind of poop. Like if you're a warrior, you want crit, and then who knows what are the other stats even called again? Are they called crit? No? Okay. So, interesting.
They're called wrong stats.
Wrong stats, yeah.
There are also plenty of classes for which the difference between the right stat and the wrong stat is so minuscule that it really doesn't matter very much. I mean, that especially with stats at the level that they are right now. So not every class, I mean, every class probably has a best one, but not every class, it really makes a really huge difference.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. So, okay, then. Anna, your turn. Go for it. Ask it.
Turn. Yeah. My turn. Reading the bullet points correctly this time.
That's fine.
Let's talk about Fester Blight, since it's all I hear about in my raid. So tell me all about Fester Blight, how it came about, what makes it particularly cool, why it is very strong and broken, and why we will not be seeing it next expansion.
Oh.
Well, that's
because it's based on
entirely true, but
because it's based on snapshotting.
Yes, but it's coming back for Warlords. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Fester Blight.
Well, then correct me.
Yes.
Yeah. Fester Blight, we originally came up for at the end of tier 14, like the very end. A friend whose name escapes me, and I generally apologize if you're watching this, suggested the idea of trying to keep your diseases up for the entire fight and just making them really high attack power, put up your dots, and then we have a mechanic called Festering Strike, which instead of every other mechanic in the game which replaces your dots, it extends the duration of a dot indefinitely. So you can literally get an hour-long duration dot on a target dummy if you were willing to put in the time. And so we tried that idea out, and it didn't work out in tier 11 because of the fact that the trinkets were just strength for a duration of time, and then that was it. That was the proc on most of the trinkets, and it wasn't enough attack power, and you got them again throughout the duration of the fight. And what changed in 5.2 was a trinket called something feathers. I can't remember what it was actually called, but everyone called it feathers. And what feathers did, I'm sure Anna, you'll be familiar with this one, is it gave you a stacking strength proc every 2 seconds, and at the end of the proc, for 2 seconds, you had a ridiculously high amount of strength. I believe it was 20,000 for the highest eye level.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but it only lasted 2 seconds, so it was balanced for the other classes. But what Unholy DKs did was they got their feather proc up to max stats. They popped everything else they had, their second trinket, blood flurry, their potion, whatever they could do. Yeah, sign up sprints to bump your attack power up. They got tricks of the trade because that worked too, and it boosted their attack power up to a monstrous level for 2 seconds. And they applied diseases and then just kept them up the entire fight, and it did a really high amount of damage, up to 5 to 10% higher than traditional Unholy would do. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Feather got removed it fell out of style in 5.4 because there were higher item level, the 580 trinkets to replace it. And Fester Blight is still done on certain fights, like Iron Juggernaut and Thok, because Thok runs away and your diseases keep ticking while he runs away. So it's a good way to get damage on him then. But for the most part, it's fallen out of fashion, and it doesn't work on the majority of fights, just because mechanically you can't afford to maintain your diseases for the entire fight in a boss without a loss, or because you have to switch to ads, etc., etc. Garages, you can't even hit him half the time, so you can't always put the diseases up. But it was a lot of fun while it lasted. I haven't played it since tier 15 ended. Arv, have you played it recently?
No, I don't have the gear to play it, sadly. No. So
yeah, just dual wield then.
I mean, Pro Warriors keep taking all the off pieces that I need. I don't know why.
Warriors.
Oh,
Goodness
okay.
gracious.
Those Warriors, they're watching the stream. They know who they are, man.
Oh, calling them out.
But it might be coming back in Warlords, because even though dot snapshotting is gone and we won't be able to do it the way we did it before, DKs are getting a new talent for the level 100 talents, which has many people excited, called Necrotic Plague. Wandering Plague, sorry, living in Dreamland. Necrotic Plague has its own built-in stacking mechanic where every time it ticks, it increases its damage. So it starts at 1 stack, goes up to 2 stacks, 3 stacks, 4 stacks, up to I believe 10. No, 15. Goes up to 15 because it ticks every 2 seconds for 30 seconds, and then it falls off at 15 unless you're an Unholy DK and you extend it, and then it can go up to 20 stacks and it'll stay at 20 stacks indefinitely. So
with Festering Strike, I assume?
With Festering Strike to extend it. This is all hypothetical based on the talent. We don't really know if they're going to let us do Fester Blight, but it was tweeted that Fester Blight might not be dead quite yet, quotation marks, by Celestalon a while ago. So I think this is the implementation they're trying to do for it. And the cool thing about Necrotic Plague is it actually jumps to other targets at the stack level it's at and the duration it's at. So if you have a 20 stack on the boss, and then it'll jump to the new mob that just wandered in, and then it'll jump from that mob to another mob until it infects all of the mobs nearby. So Unholy could actually do a ton of ad damage by just having a 20 stack of diseases floating around and infecting everything. And it's really cool Unholy gameplay too, because it feels fun to spread a disease and then slowly watch it grow and spread and infect everyone around you.
That's like the whole
it's very
baseline of it.
Thematic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both of your... If they all stick, 2 of your new talents you're getting at level 100 are both Arthas abilities, both the Plague and freaking Defile. So I mean,
and we already have Remorseless Winter, Soul Reaper.
Sure, exactly.
Very Arthas based.
Yeah, of course. You're slowly becoming the enemy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody in chat actually said, I'm the Beast said, so it's basically a melee warlock. You sound like when you're describing how Fester Blight plays, it's like, oh, so you're like an Affliction Lock, except not really with the soul swapping. But it's very much...
Affliction Locks still have tricks. We can't have tricks anymore. They remove it.
They removed tricks.
We don't benefit from tricks anymore.
Yeah, they just said, we're going to band-aid it. Tricks no longer works on diseases. That was the bounce patch. They had to nerf Fester Blight. And it's better that than getting the strike damage nerf, which was the original change. But anyway, Frost is going to have access to Necrotic Plague as well, and Frost is just going to have it ramp up and then fall off and then ramp up again. So it might actually be useful for Frost as well, because it's more free disease spreading. So again, we got to wait to see what the numbers are like, but Fester Blight might not quite be dead just yet. So... looking forward to that.
Now, was the appeal of Fester Blight, was it, I mean, obviously part of it was the really big numbers.
Damage.
But, yeah, the damage, of course. But also, I mean, was it a particularly fun playstyle, or was it more boring? Because sometimes you have these playstyles that put out really huge numbers. They're just not that interesting to play. But it sounds like it was really enjoyable to really just, hit the very top end of that trinket and get your diseases all off right there. I mean, did you like it?
It had 2 really cool strengths to it. One of them was that the disease damage, basically, you have a set number of runes generated over the period of a fight, and you have to spend enough of them on Festering Strike so that your diseases last for the entire fight. 1 Festering Strike every 5-6 seconds on average. And if you spent all of those Festering Strikes in the beginning of the fight, then you would almost have higher execute damage, because you could spam your higher damage abilities at the end of the fight when the diseases were already at a minute or 2. So you could control when you had bursts of damage and when you didn't have bursts of damage without using cooldowns, but just by using the duration left on your diseases, which I thought was really cool and engaging gameplay. The ability to basically, without a no cooldown that just charged up whenever you weren't using it with your disease duration. So I felt that was a really cool interaction. And it also had a huge weak point, which was ads, because Unholy uses a talent called Roiling Blood to spread diseases to ads. And what that does is whenever you blood boil, it pestilences, and it basically takes diseases from one ad and it spreads them to all the ones around it.
Yeah.
And diseases snapshot based off your current attack power, not the attack power of the original disease. So the problem with Roiling Blood is if you used it on an ad and spread diseases to the boss, your high diseases that had 10 minutes left were just gone. And so it was a really big weak point. There's actually a bug on Darumu where even pestilencing the boss would just wipe out your disease damage, and it would reset it to normal without resetting the duration. And so it was very risky playing Fester Blight. If your disease damages went off, you were basically screwed for the entire fight. If you let them fall off, or if you accidentally spread them from an ad.
I mean, that's the issue a couple of the dot classes had with that whole issue right now, is that they could either do amazingly well or just do poop.
Yeah.
Right, like if anything happened in a fight that ruined that role you had going, then
you
just
can't
you
redo
can't
it
make
because
up for it.
you can't line up your trinket scan after the beginning of the fight.
Nope.
And then the real problem is not necessarily whether it's difficult or easy, but the fact that they have to balance that class around what the top end players can do, and then people who can't pull it off, who maybe don't have the UI setup or the add-ons to do it, and then they don't feel as though they're playing the class to its fullest. So.
And they luckily did change the balance decision, like I said, and they balanced it by nerfing Tricks of the Trade, which wouldn't affect any of the lower level players. The original balance choice that it actually had to cross out in the patch notes was they were going to buff Scourge Strike and nerf Festering Strike damage. But they changed that to the Tricks of the Trade to actually make Fester Blight better for people who didn't have rogues available. I know, Arv, you probably had rogues tricksing you when you were doing Fester Blight.
Yeah, I had rogues.
I had a rogue who promised to tricks me when I got Feather, and I never got Feather, so I never got to try it out until after we got to Lei Shen. That was when I started doing Fester Blight. So that was very disappointing and heartbreaking.
I always have rogues tricksing me, like, I don't know why. They love me.
Yeah,
you just have to treat them like I don't know.
I've seen
just
you
pay them gold. Pay them gold.
Pay them gold. Dalton, are you there? Do you charge money?
Oh, please! Of course they charge money. What else? How else do you think our rogues would figure out who they're going to tricks?
Yeah,
in previous times.
Yeah, going away.
20% uptime on tricks on like every fight.
20. Wow.
Yeah, he just gets it like 2 or 3 rogues. I'm assuming permanently tricks in him.
No, I only get 1 rogue. Like, I wish I had all the rogues. Like
all the rogues.
That's how you get parses. You stack shamans, warriors, and rogues, and you get them all to tricks you and drop their banners and storm lashes.
Yep.
That's the way to win.
I mean, when you do like 30 clears of Siege of Orgrimmar, like you get bored. So I mean,
yeah, fair enough.
Now, are you going to miss this kind of a high skill playstyle? I know that the removal of snapshotting is a little bit controversial in the high-end community because a lot of us really enjoy having to track all of those things and track the strengths of different things and our snapshotting abilities. I don't really have all that many, but it sounds like it made a much bigger deal for you guys. And so the fact that those kinds of playstyles is going away, it's got some people very unhappy. Are you going to miss it, or do you think that what you were speaking of before, sort of the replacement for Fester Blight, is really going to be just as enjoyable in the end?
Well, we'll have to wait and see for the replacement because no one's had a chance to test it out yet, at least no one I know. So I have no idea how it feels like or what the benefits are or even if it's going to be, like, damage-wise worthwhile to take Necrotic Plague. And that's all balance changes, and we'll see that further along in Warlords. Like I said, I only got to play Fester Blight for 1 fight for progression, like, ever. Like, that was Lei Shen, and then I went back to Druid Frost after not getting the trinket. So I enjoyed playing it for 1 fight, but I don't really think it was, like, the high point of Death Knights. I'm going to miss it, but I don't think that it's the biggest loss in the world to see it gone because it was very heavily dependent on add-ons. There were add-ons written literally a copy of AFDOTs called DK Diseases, which also does the Soul Reaper attack power monitoring, they were just basically required. And it's not a lot of fun to stare at an add-on to tell you when to use your diseases.
Yeah.
No, because the add-ons playing the game for you, then not you playing the game for yourself. So
I don't just tell you how much attack power you have. So I mean, you refresh the disease when you have like a lot of attack
still needs
power,
to be some. I mean, there still needs to be some brain power in there. I mean, the question is whether or not you're going to lose that challenge of like doing it right at a very specific time, and it was a 2-second window, like you said, in order to get it. And I know, at least I only had 1 ability that I had to do in that 2-second window because Rets only had 1 thing that.
But it was only a 2-second window once per fight, and then it was just pretty much the maintenance was gone.
Right.
That was
You only do it at the beginning of the fight, and
you
after
had to
that,
hit
you just
one bullseye, and then you just go on autopilot.
Well,
And
that
it
sounds
was,
a little bit less interesting.
yeah, it was a
yeah,
lot
it
of
is
fun.
pretty boring to be honest. Like, you just refresh diseases at the beginning, and after that, you spam Festering Strike, and that's it.
And
That's
that's
the
it.
whole. That's the
Yeah.
whole playstyle of
Ah.
Festerblight. Like,
You just cruise along.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there's another answer to that question that I just asked. That's a more interesting answer. That doesn't sound nearly as interesting of a playstyle.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm going to lament losing with Festerblight was the playstyle I described where you could control your own burst and use Festering Strike when you wanted a lower damage and Scourge Strike, Soul Reaper when you wanted higher damage at the risk of your diseases falling off. I liked that. Didn't really like the whole snapshotting thing in general, but it was fun while it lasted. And it's cool to see DKs get pretty much more playstyles, I think, than anyone else, because we had Master Frost, we had Master Complicated, we had Two-Handed Frost, we had Normal Unholy, we had Fester Blight, we had Damage-Based Blood, which used Death Coil, and then we had Tanky-Based Blood. So we had like 8 different ways to play our class, and that was fun.
There you go. Well, fair enough. Well, I knew that was going to take a long time to talk about, but that's a huge playstyle point that DK's had for a long time. But let's go into some talents now. So there aren't really any talents that really impact, like, you don't have, like, DPS talents, like, basically. Like, you don't have, like, a cooldown one like I do.
No, we don't
like,
have DPS cooldowns.
Yeah, they don't have DPS stuff relative to... You do have a way that your runes and runic power work, however.
Yeah.
So another one is your diseases. So let's start off with a little 56 talent.
You already know Mendenbarr's opinion on the talent trees.
Yeah.
Got a little preview of it earlier.
Mhm.
That makes me kind of sad because I like to see every class really enjoy the different choices that they get.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear not just what you're unhappy about, but also how you would like to see it better for next expansion as we go through these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one up then is going to be Plague Leech versus Roiling Blood versus Unholy Blight. So for Frost and Unholy, just to give it back and forth, do you pick one of these and keep it forever? Or is there some, like, you know, wiggle room here with these talents, Arv?
well, for Frost, you pick Black Leash. It's like Unholy Blight doesn't have anything important. I mean, dots don't do any damage for Frost, and Unholy Blight, all that it does, it just spreads dots everywhere. So you'd pick Black Leash for Frost because it gives you two dead runes, and 2 dead runes is like 2 Holy Blasts, and it's pretty much it. Like for Unholy, you pick Unholy Blight or Rolling Blood, and yeah.
Roiling Blood is literally not even viable as a choice for Frost. There's not a single situation where you'd use Blood Boil, and therefore the talent is completely useless. It's
Well,
primarily
Blood Boil.
talent.
Blood Boil is the ability, the AOE ability for Unholy.
Yeah,
so
and Blood. So, but Frost doesn't use it. So
Frost
it's a
doesn't
talent
use- Frost
that one of the
uses
specs
Unholy
can't
Blast.
use. Yeah, and Plague Leech is just like 5-10% more DPS over taking Unholy Blight, which does basically nothing. So it's pretty much you just pick on Plague Leech and stick with it, like Arv said.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
No,
usually pretty much like if you don't know how to use Black Leech, you better start learning because I mean it's like DPS increase 20k DPS something like that if you do it right. I mean yeah, it's pretty hard to learn it to use, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, like you said, Unholy has a choice between... the problem with Plague Leech is it screws up your diseases because Unholy is really important disease damage, and when you leech the diseases, you might leech high-damage diseases. It works for Unholy, but it works a lot less often because you can't use it on cooldown like you can for Frost when you need it. You have to wait for your diseases to be either falling off or you just have really weak diseases up, or it's just a loss to get the runes in exchange for weaker diseases up. So most Unholy players either take Roiling Blood, like 90%, for the increased ease of spreading diseases on AoE, or they take Unholy Blight if they don't like Roiling Blood. I don't know anyone who takes Unholy Blight for it's just multiple target, but for single target, Roiling Blood's useless, and Unholy Blight's a free application. So Unholy Blight for single target, Roiling Blood for multi-target for Unholy, and then dual wield and Two-Handed Frost just take Plague Leech. So pretty boring choices there. Not really anything that we can pick personally.
At least there is some choice for Unholy, though, but it definitely seems like... I mean, that's the thing we always seen about, like, with the multi-class talents. Like, if you have 3 different versions of the same class in your kit, like rogues, like, usually there's, like, a talent for each spread of rogue, where you can't, like, there's not, like, a one that works for all 3. You're always like, well, this is the choice, this is the choice, this is the choice. So that's not terribly awful that you have a little bit there, but I guess it seems for Frost you have one.
Yeah, and the problem with Unholy Blight for Unholy is it is so weak that there are literally times when I would not switch out of Roiling Blood, even for the damage gain, because it was like 0.1%.
Oh, wow. That low.
It's so tiny. Like, it doesn't make much of a difference, but Roiling Blood is literally 0 if you don't have ads to spread diseases to. So you might as well switch. But it's very, very tiny. The problem with Unholy Blight is it applies diseases 10 times. And so if you want to hit the Feather 2-second window, or if you want to hit Trinket windows, then you have to actually cancel the Unholy Blight partway through, or it respreads your diseases that are weaker later on if your buffs fall off.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it just competes with Unholy Disease Management sometimes. So,
well, okay.
Yeah, it's just not strong overall. So yeah, weak tier. Love the new Plague Leech. Got buffed in 5.4 as dual wield Frost. Don't really like it as the other two specs, but not really much of a choice for any spec that makes a big difference.
Wow. Okay. Well, next one up, Anna, take the 75s.
So let's talk about Blood Tap versus Runic Empowerment versus Runic Corruption. Are there any specific talents here that are just you always pick it and that's always the talent that you use, or is this actually an interesting choice at all? Arv?
For Blood Tap, you pick. Frost. You pick Blood Tap, and I see people macro it to Frost Strike. You please don't do that. Don't macro that.
When you said that, I just had so many visions of terrible macro suggestions.
Yeah.
Like don't macro the ability, please. Just learn how to use the ability. Sorry. Learn how to use Blood Tap. It's very easy. I mean, you use it when your runes are on cooldown. And then you press it and runes come back up. It's pretty simple. Gotcha. But people macro it because they think it's hard. They don't want to watch the buff, and they don't want to put the ability on their bars. Like, I mean,
well, the problem might be linked to people who probably don't have really great rune trackers. Not every DK has a good rune tracker, but you kind of need a really good rune tracker to be playing a DK, so...
That's true, yep.
I've seen people play with the default UI at a very high level, and I've just gone, what? Because the default UI is the same one they had in Wrath when we had a 6-rune system, and they didn't change it when they revamped the rune system. And so I have a lot of trouble trying to understand what runes are actually up, which ones are recharging, just looking at the default UI. But other people actually use it, and it works for them. So what do I know?
I'm sure it can be. I'm sure it can be done. I mean, I've seen paladins play with the default holy power tracker as well. But I mean, I'm just saying that a lot of times when people say, oh, this ability is really complicated to use, it's not necessarily because that ability is hard. It's because they don't have the information available that makes it easier. So yeah.
There you go. I got the thing.
So I guess the answer there is Blood Tap.
Well,
yeah, Blood Tap for Frost.
Going back to that.
Yeah.
For Unholy, you do either Runic Corruption or Blood Tap, whatever you like. I think Blood Tap for Unholy is a little bit more harder. I mean,
yeah. Runic Empowerment is just too random. Gives you back a random rune, probably the rune you don't want. It's a hassle, and despite the fact that it gives more runes per hit, it's just not worth it because of that hassle. Runic Corruption is the lazy person's option in general because it gives you back everything completely passively. You don't need to worry about it. There's no management at all. Whereas with Blood Tap, you have that added level of management. And Macro Blood Tap is the lazy person's Runic Corruption for Frost. So like Arv said, you shouldn't do that. You should learn how to use it. If you absolutely hate learning how to use it and you just want to slam your face against the keyboard and get damage, though, Macro BT is better than Runic Corruption because it gives back death runes. And Unholy runes are basically useless for dual wield Frost there, and you don't want them. So even if it only procs an Unholy rune a third of the time, or the Runic Corruption brings back a tiny bit of an Unholy rune, it's not worth it because you could be getting 100% death runes from Blood Tap. So, but yeah, learn how to use Blood Tap.
So if you have a new boosted DK and more buttons are scarier, then you probably be picking Blood Tap and figuring out how to use it.
Yeah. Figure it out eventually. If you're just starting with a brand new DK, Runic Corruption for Unholy, Runic Corruption for Blood, and Macro BT for Frost. If you're just starting. If you spent more than 10 minutes on it, give BT a try without the macro, like Arv said.
Okay. Doesn't sound too terrible. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions toward like the way your rune system works, or are these okay? Is it Runic Empowerment just needs a rework or needs to be scrapped and brought for something else, or like do you have any? Either of you have thoughts towards the rune system, Arv?
I think they just need to remove like the whole talent tree, like that line of talent. They just need to remove it because
it's
always the same option for one spec and the other. Like
Yeah. It is
What's the point of that?
10,000%
And you don't use
better
one
than it used to
talent.
be.
Yeah, you don't use one talent. Like you don't use runic empowerment because it's a terrible talent. Yeah, they should just remove it and add something else to that talent line. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the tree because I remember what it was before we had it, when we were basically locked into using runic empowerment unless we were Unholy, and then we were locked into runic corruption, and there's no choice about it. And I much prefer having one option, sticking with it over what it was previously. But I agree, it could definitely be just kick the whole talent out and give us blood tap baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really mind that.
Maybe,
But-
I mean, because it just seems like your talent tree is so imbalanced compared to like almost every other class that has like a new spells or like DPS cooldowns and they need. I mean, I guess you're getting it with your level 100s, but then usually most people have two different rotational changing elements. I don't know how much Anna's changed, but I know that like Enhanced Summon can run two different like sets, and it changes how like the class performs like rotation wise or your priority list or whatever. But it doesn't seem like you guys have any of that.
No, I
So-
think, yeah, the talent tree is the weakest part of Death Knights right now.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of good stuff going for us, and there's
Yeah.
good stuff in the talent tree, just not very much of it.
You get, it looks like too, you guys get a lot of stuff, you just get it as you level. You get
Yeah.
so much stuff in your class just as you level. So they had to like think of like, well, what can we give him on a talent tree? I don't know, this thing. Like that's what it felt like at first. So hopefully that'll change. I know May just had a huge issue with their talent trees, and that's why they get like the biggest talent rework like in Warlord so far. Maybe we'll get a little love for DKs too.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that y'all are so dissatisfied with your talent tree. Have you seen any major changes coming for Warlords?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
disappointing.
It's too early to say that. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too
of
early.
course.
it's not even the alpha's not even out. So just
Yeah.
wait till the alpha's out and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my hopes that they just started with other classes and they'll get to us when they feel like
Of course, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I realize the alpha's not even out, but we did just get a really big information dump about a week and a half
Yeah,
ago.
they did.
So
And
if I
DK's
was
yeah.
looking for changes, I would have wanted to see them begin there,
Yeah.
and then
it.
at least I could
get
say.
changes there, quite a fair number of them, just nothing that I can think of that really related to the talent tree at all. It was the ability pruning. We had a huge disease change where abilities do not rely on disease damage anymore. So diseases are just there for the damage instead of for the boosted ability damage. And we had a bunch of blood changes, which we probably won't be going into. And
Nope.
the anti-magic shell change, which we will be going into later. So
Well, yeah, right now. I mean, we can go into that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Although I don't really know about
57s.
these. I don't know about these numbers that are here on the notes bay. I question these numbers.
numbers.
Level 57 talents.
They get 3 talents as they level up, and then they go to 75, and then they go to
Yeah,
75.
we
That's
started
how it
at
works.
55, Anna. We're a hero. Remember?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's why
right.
it looks weird, but yes.
See, I
Yeah,
haven't
we get-
respect my DK in all of MOPs. So.
And yeah, exactly.
We get a talent per level for like the first 3 or 4
First 3
levels.
I
levels. I
see.
think, yeah.
Okay, so this isn't making me look any more on top of things to chat. So
Hey,
let's
it's
just, let's move right along. They actually are the level 57 talents. Okay, Lichborn versus the Anti-Magic Zone versus Purgatory. Now I know which talent Magdalena takes, but let's talk about which
Because he
talents
has
you
to.
guys take.
Yeah.
Yes. We were talking about Void Shift. Hold on, I just have to troll Magdalena a little bit. We were talking about Void Shift in Raid the other night, and our healing priest says, "Well, I know what I use Void Shift for, and that's to heal Magdalena out of his purgatory."
Yes.
Sorry, Magdalena. Anyway, so let's hear. Do you guys take purgatory, or do you take a different one of these?
Yeah. What do you guys do?
Leechborns for PvP, sadly. I mean,
Yeah, and
there's no use for it on PvE, so AMC is pretty good, I say. I mean, it's like really good on like almost every fight in this tier. Like Galakraz, it's good on Galakraz. It's good on every fight. I mean, yeah. Purgatory, you just take it if you die too much. That's my theory for it. Like,
Okay.
if you get hit too much by fire and all that stuff, you just take it so you can
find
have
a
a
priest
second chance.
who will
Yeah.
voice shift you, like Mags
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
and then take
Purgatory is like a second chance for DPS Den Knights. If you
Yeah, I
take it,
used
it's
to-
because you're taking too much damage and you're
Yep.
doing a run. So
Or I mean, it could just be that you're surviving on progression when you should be surviving. I mean, I joke about that, but I am the class that has Lay on Hands and Bubble, and those things have saved me more than once. I used to really dislike Purgatory because I was thinking to myself, man, it's like Ardent Defender, but for DKs. I mean, that's really what it is. It's very much like the old school passive Ardent Defender that we used to have.
Except you guys prevent the hit, right?
Right. Well,
we have to get healed up out of it.
Ardent Defender did used to prevent the hit. Yes, but you can have it as DPS, and Ardent Defender.
Yeah, true enough.
The only thing.
Yeah, Purgatory is very similar to the mage talent. What's it called?
Cauterize.
Cauterize.
Yeah,
there.
Cauterize.
And Rogue's
much
Cheat
more
Death.
Cheat Death, yeah. Almost the same sort of.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yep. So, well, fair enough. I don't know. Anything else to talk about your 57s? I want to get into anti-magic shell and scumbagging real quick. So
sure.
People have are you guys satisfied with anti-magic zone? Isn't that your raid CD? Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the raid CD. I mean, they changed it so much, and before it was like very, very bad. Like like it was very
get used on Garrosh. I don't really see it get used anywhere else.
I use it on nearly every fight.
You can use it on every fight. Like it's people, your DK does not use it on every fight. I don't know.
You just gotta get mags to switch over to AMZ and you see it more.
I just may not be seeing it. And for the record, Mags hasn't raided with us regularly for some time.
Before AMZ,
I can't troll him that badly.
Oh, well, fair. Okay. I mean, it's getting nerfed a little bit in Warlords, at least in the first iteration right now, because it gets us too strong. Originally, it used to be like a giant powered shield that would like snap immediately and be gone with like one ability. Now
and it would
has,
actually
like,
it would disappear on the Shaman Spirit Totem because that counted as damage, and that would make AMZ go away.
Oh, that's horrible.
Oh, that's terrible.
Then that existed for a very long time.
AMC is like a Devo, but it's like you place it and you stand on it.
Yeah,
it's like a
That's
super
it.
Devo that only lasts 3 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a really
if your DK
interesting idea.
Yeah. No, it works. It's a little. I mean, everything's getting chipped down,
Tones
features,
down.
so,
Yeah.
Are you guys hanging on to that in Warlords? I don't remember from the raid
getting
CD change.
weaker, but it's like rallying cries being nerfed to 15%. I don't believe they've released the number, but AMZ is going to be weaker, but still exist.
I don't know if the camera was on me to catch my like rolling eyes there.
No, we didn't. I didn't get
Sorry.
the super eye roll. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No.
I was when I heard like, oh, rallying cry is getting weaker. Anyway, no, I think it's a really interesting raid cooldown simply because it's like you said, it's like a Devo, but it's stronger and shorter. And I always thought that was a very interesting idea.
I like AMZ as a concept, but as we're talking about, it competes with Purgatory. So you have to pick between personal survival or raid survival. And you feel selfish taking Purgatory, but it's such a fun talent because, little known fact, it actually makes you not have to pay repair bills. If you die in Purgatory, you don't take damage or to your gear.
Kind of like the old DI.
Yeah, it saves me.
Why do you want that? You have guild repairs. Like,
well, not all.
You don't even pay for your repairs, man.
Trials
true.
don't.
Well, I mean that is not the only talent tier that a class has to pick between raid survivability and personal survivability.
Really?
I don't think it's a great choice. Well, yeah, paladins do the same thing when you choose between Unbreakable Spirit and Clemency or Hand of Purity, because Clemency and Hand of Purity are they help your hands out, so it's for raid survivability. Or you can pick to have your own personal survivability.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we have
learned something new.
Yeah.
It's probably the only interesting choice we have. So as much as I don't like having to pick between those, it's really like the only thing we get. So I'll probably try to hold on to it.
You'll take what you can get as far as interesting choices. I see how that is.
All of the other choices are no-brainers. Like there's a cookie cutter talent spec, and it switches between AMZ and Purgatory depending on which you prefer. And that's like the only real place where there isn't a right answer. Everywhere else, there's pretty much a right or wrong answer for talents. And that one's a little more murky. And so, it's the shining example of DK talents at its best.
I can understand that, because I think a lot of us really like the way the new talents work. If you actually have choices. If you don't have choices, then what's the whole point of all of these talents changing from Cataclysm to Mob? So
there shouldn't be a cookie cutter spec, but there is.
Well, we can hope for changes for you guys for Warlords.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention, Lichborn actually is getting changed for Warlords because it wasn't in the notes, but it was in a tweet, I believe. They're changing it to Leech, which is the new stat where you deal damage and you heal back that damage. So it might actually be a valid choice, unlike now where it's just you don't take it at all. So that's the one change that they are actually doing, so they do care.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't watched the 6-0 interview where we sat down with Celestalon and Zarum, you need to, because the level of like information they're digging into and how much they're paying attention to so many different things from all of Mists going into Warlords, it caused a whole lot of like, Blizzard doesn't care about us. Blah. It's not there. They are like overloaded with stuff, and they are trying to do as much as they can.
They're definitely listening, and they're definitely
absolutely
responding. Like Celestion's tweeted so many times since those patch notes came out.
Yep.
I have trouble keeping up with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little about anti-magic shell DPS benefits.
You know what this reminded me of when I was reading about it? Is it reminded me of the warrior recklessness that we were talking
absolutely.
about.
Yeah, and
this is another one of those
degree.
incoming damage equals outgoing damage talents.
Yeah, Berserker stance, right?
Yeah, Berserker stance, sorry.
Berserker stance, yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and Tank Vengeance as well, before it got nerfed standing in fire, damage gain.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but talk about anti-magic shell. Most interestingly, does it work off of damage before mitigation, or is it only damage after mitigation? Because that's a really big difference with regard to this versus Vengeance.
Damage after mitigation.
Okay.
And
so that's
it is
much
actually
less good.
Yeah, it's calculated after absorbs as well.
Yeah. See, that's much less good. There's a reason why Vengeance is calculated on damage prior to mitigation. This is because anti-magic shell is just like, take damage, have more damage going out. That's just not good.
But it is good, though, because
it is good, though.
It is good.
It has such a high rate of conversion from damage into runic, and runic isn't like attack power. It's a set stat that scales with attack power. So as we get more gear, the stuff we're spending the runic on hits harder and harder and harder. So it's just a flat increase depending on the amount of bonus runic we get. And it's one runic per 1,000 damage, and it's very easy to take 1,000 damage in a raid. So you get a ton of runic out of AMS right now.
Yeah. Well, the work of it is that you pop AMS, you absorb the damages, and then you get like you dump your runic power before you do this, obviously, and then you just fill it right back up, and then you use your spender again, which is either Frost Strike or like Death Coil. So.
And AMS has a duration of 5 seconds, and if you're
continuously taking damage,
then you can just continually spam the ability. Like on Garrosh empowered whirls or non-empowered whirls, if you're standing in, you just AMS, and you can generate about 200 to 300% of your runic cap in that time by just spamming your button. And you can just get one off every global cooldown until the AMS falls. And it's a lot of fun, I have to say. I really enjoy that.
And you went over this before. You kind of commented on like, because of how DKs work, that's sort of like a differentiating point between like a really good DK and a good DK is your AMS timing for all the extra damage you get.
It is very important skill-wise to be able to time AMS at the right time, because the runic can make a huge difference over the course of a fight, where you might gain up to like 20% DPS from someone who doesn't soak at all versus someone who soaks perfectly on a good fight for soaking. Obviously, there are bad fights for soaking where it's not going to make as much of a difference. But it really does make a huge difference in the amount of resources you get over time. And also in the way you should gear, because if you're not using AMS, then you need a lot more haste than if you were using AMS a lot more. So it's kind of a neat interaction between our stats. We have one stat that gets down, like we said earlier, as AMS soaking goes up, because it just generates resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Now, did Frosted and Holy both benefit similarly from
Equally,
AMS?
yes.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same for both of them.
I think they make the change like before. Before, I think it was Frost that didn't benefit from AMS.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And that was terrible.
Yeah.
And they changed it, and the game is so much better now.
In Kata, where you could in the Unholy tree, where you'd spec into generating runic from AMS, and they made it baseline for MOP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much scumbagging of this do you do, Arv, to get those levels you get, those parses? How much?
Chad is saying that it's less scumbagging and more just good timing. So yeah, let's hope that it's just good timing. Tell me.
Well, no, that's fair. That's fine.
Some fights is like scumbag. Other fights is like timing, because the boss doesn't do the ability like frequently, so you have to time it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else, like just time it good, and if there's fire and there's nothing coming, stand on the fire and pop AMS, be a scumbag. I don't know. That's how it works. Like you look for the ability and you use AMS and you destroy the boss.
There's two cool things about AMS that makes it less scumbaggy than it would be otherwise. It absorbs the damage instead of you taking it. So your healers don't have to heal you back up at all. It's not like Vengeance or Berserker stance in that. It actually absorbs all of the magic damage, and if it stops absorbing, you stop getting any benefit out of it. So it's a shield, and the shield, as it absorbs, it gives you the resources. And you need to absorb about 100k damage to get a full runic bar from 0, which is ridiculously easy to get. Bosses sneeze for more damage than that.
So it's only scumbagging if you mess up.
If you mess
take
up.
too much damage.
Or if you're me and you have a cancel aura for healer absorbs. Which,
oh, there it goes.
You make a macro. You make a macro. In the macro you do cancel aura, all the shields, everything.
Yeah, like guard power word shield will be calculated before AMS. So if you have a million guard up, then the damage won't reach your AMS, and you don't get any power. So I cancel all that stuff.
Oh my goodness.
We're trying to give Chad a good word here to say like it's good timing, but then this comes out.
Well, they could just change that.
Well, all they have to do is calculate it prior to mitigation. I mean, that's the entire reason why Vengeance does that is to prevent that kind of thing where you're like canceling out all of your mitigation abilities.
Or just make like the AMS absorb happen before the healer absorb. That would make all the problems go away. But in Warlords, we have another problem, which is it's now stamina based. So the more health you have, the less runics you soak. So hello, cancel aura powered fortitude.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No.
I mean, that's behavior that I think is not going to last. That's not behavior that they want to encourage positive gameplay, and it actually sounds like some of the timing aspects that you're talking about are more positive gameplay, but they don't want you to be canceling your power word fortitude.
No, or my absorbs. My healers were very upset about that when I told them.
Dude, I hate discipline priests, man. Discipline priests are the worst. They are enemy. They are the DK.
They're the anti-DK.
Yeah.
And everybody is just hating on disc priests.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've been life gripped as revenge for when they were death gripped. Back in Wrath.
No.
When you can death grip friendly.
And years. Priest would only death grip DKs, at least the one in my raids. Like on the way back from a pull, always the DK who got gripped, never anyone else.
Wow.
Priest
we're trying to send you a message there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys enjoy that playstyle, the AMS playstyle, and I know Chat was talking about it a little bit too. Do you? You think it's fun, or do you think it's not so much fun?
I think it's fun.
Yeah, favorite part of playing a DK right now is the
wow, is it? Okay.
Strong words.
I mean, there's something more fun than use an ability and you get damage out of it. Like, it's pretty fun. Like,
when you time an ability that mitigates damage and you get extra damage out of it, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, last little bit here. Yeah, let's take. I think we've integrated enough 6.0 talk into the show. We can talk more about that in the after show. I want to get them a little bit of soapbox time because we got to get out of here.
Yeah, so if you have one last thing that you'd like to leave the DK community with, after all of the talking about different mechanics and specific details that you guys have said here, just the one thing to leave the people watching the show with, what would you like to communicate to the DPS DK community?
You go first, Arv?
Yeah, go for you, Arv.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first? I don't know what to say. Like,
okay.
No, that's terrible.
Okay. I share all of my tips on the guides and the advanced DK tactics thread on Elitist Jerks and all the questions and my blog. So I don't really have many specific things to say. One that is not that well known is the cancel aura for AMS absorbs, but that's not the one I want to leave you guys with. So I will say that okay. Sentry Totem is doing audits now. I'm one of the experts for Death Knights. If you want, I take a look over Death Knight logs and can find out what people are doing right and what people are doing wrong at sentrytotem.com/help-me, and it's completely free. I believe, Bay, you actually did the ad for Sentry Totem?
I did already. It's actually on the screen right now. You just can't see it. I just brought up the Help Me page right here where you could submit your request and then view requests. So you get help from top raiders, one-on-one in private, and it's freaking free. Look at this word. So yes, there it is.
And one thing I've noticed that a lot of Death Knights are doing wrong, specifically for dual-wield Frost, is the percentage of killing machine uptime is a lot higher than it should be for a lot of people. And what that means is people aren't reacting fast enough. And that's just the biggest issue I've found when I'm looking through people's logs. And basically, the way you can fix that is by, as dual-wield Frost, which is the most common log type I've been looking at, whenever killing machine procs, no matter what else you're doing, no matter what runes are up, you hit Frost Strike. That was your number one priority. You get that Frost Strike out as soon as the proc comes up. And you want to keep the proc uptime down so that it's not up for a long time, because the longer Killing Machine is up, the higher chance that a second one will proc and overwrite the first one, which is bad. You don't want that.
You just literally lose damage. Yeah. Yep.
So you don't want to waste the procs, and you want to actually bank 20 Runic at all times unless you have a Killing Machine proc. Even if you're sitting on your thumbs or you're casting Empower Rune Weapon or Unholy Plague Strike or Plague Leech or whatever, any of your filler abilities, you leave that 20 Runic in until you have a Killing Machine proc, because otherwise you might not have the Runic to react in time. And it's so important to get rid of that Killing Machine proc as soon as possible. So that's just a little tidbit I found that I haven't shared anywhere else.
There you go.
I have a tip, man.
What is it, Arv? Go for it.
I bought you time.
Right.
People should use mouse over Holy Blast. It's pretty useful. I don't see a lot of DKs using it. Only the good ones use it, sadly. I don't know. It's pretty good. You don't lose your target when you want to Holy Blast another group of mobs. Like, what else? Always save 20 runic power, because you don't know if you're gonna be starved. Like, you don't know if you're gonna end up doing nothing. Like, always save up some runic power so you can do something. I don't know. Be an engineer. Engineers.
Be an engineer.
Be an engineer. Be an engineer is a pretty good recommendation for pretty much everything.
Dude, I see a lot of DKs like they're like.
If you're not an engineer and you're doing something wrong.
Why your description, man? Like, engineer, you can time up your synapse sprints with Pillar of Frost. It's really good.
It's not very profitable, but it's very powerful. So.
It's very powerful when you want to burst something, when you want to, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Be an engineer.
Be an engineer. I think we could end the show on that.
Yeah, we can definitely end the show on that.
I think we can. Oh, it's button time, everybody. It's button time. We'll be back for more, of course, in the after show. I think that's a wrap on DPS DKs. Perfect. Thank you guys very much. Yeah, again, we're gonna have, actually, to preface this real quick, during this break between this and the after show, we're doing a couple giveaways for MoltenCoins, so don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
but if you have questions, stick around. Tweet at us at FinalBossTV, or send us an email down below. The link's right down there for both of those, or stick around and chat. But around the table again, Arv from Vodka, formerly of the Blood Legion. You can go follow him on Twitter at what? I'm not gonna ruin it. You say it. What's your Twitter handle?
Alfreditorius.
There it is. What? I can't. My tongue doesn't sound like that. I can't do the accent, so I can't make it sound. But you can go follow him on Twitter. It's right there on the screen. Go check that out. Thank you again for being on the show, sir. It was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to everybody about DKs. Hopefully you guys reroll and play it.
Yeah.
Best class.
And that's definitely what we want people to come out of these kinds of shows with, that impression. Like, that class sounds awesome. I wanna boost one of those.
They would be re-rolling every week.
Just play the class and see if you like it. I mean, that's my recommendation. Like, the class is really good.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
And then
you can solo stuff. You can solo stuff as blood. So
you can. Yes. Absolutely. There it is. There's the Twitter. And then Mendenbarr from trialing right now with Midwinter, formerly of Divide. You can go all of his socials and his blog is over at DestinySoftWorks.com. Thank you again for being on the show, sir.
It's been great.
It's been very fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to share this experience with everyone.
Yes.
And did not expect to ever be on webcam. So, yeah.
Well, Arv called you out, so blame him.
People have been asking for y'all's streams and such, so I'm trying to link y'all's Twitters, and on the break we'll make sure to get any other websites where y'all are featured.
Yes.
I have a stream that I don't use. I used it once for the Death Knight Roundtable that Magdalena and I organized, and I might actually stream Death Knight play if my computer can handle it. I'll have to try that out later on.
See.
There you go. And the co-host of Final Boss with her new setup and her lights and stuffs.
With my new setup, it's really nice to be here doing the show with actual real equipment now. So I want to thank everyone who watches every week and all those familiar names that I see every single week who come watch us. Thanks, guys.
You can follow Anna at Twitter at AnnaFeel.
Yes,
pretty
at
simple.
AnnaFeel.
Yep. And then, of course, there's my face. I run this whole big shindig. Again, my name is Adam K, a.k.a. Bay, and you can follow me at twitch.tv, BayTLM. That's where I do all the outside streaming and stuff like that. However, alpha and beta streaming and stuff that Anna and I will do for Warlords will be explicitly on this channel for reasons coming up soon. I know you guys love when Anna says y'all, and soon you will all be able to do that as well.
Soon
So,
all y'all will be able to do that as well.
there you go, exactly. Next
Say
week...
that 5 times fast.
Oh, I know. Next week, the 27th of this month, I misspoke a little bit last week. The 27th is Duck Sauce. Next week, it's not the 27th, it'll be Prot Warriors with question mark and question mark. The reason why I have a couple classes this late in the the circuit is because they're hard to find guests for. So if you know awesome Prot Warriors that are big into the community, theory crafting and whatnot, send them over and make them put in be a guest, or tweet me at FinalBossTV, because we're still looking for 2 awesome Prot Warrior guests. Otherwise, Sloot's gonna be on, and I don't even know what's gonna happen then.
He plays a Prot Warrior.
He'll be chewing gum
yes,
again or something, yeah, so. We'll see you guys next week, though. Have a great one. Have a good reset. Trust in the coin. And until the after show, we'll see you guys later. But bye-bye! Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Say bye, you nerds.
Bye.
There you go.
Have a wonderful day.
Perfect.